Hi guys, welcome to Book Time. My name is Julia. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book called The Lebs by Michael Mohammed Ahmad. This is the second book I've read from the Miles Franklin Literary Award 2019 shortlist this year, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. So I think that Michael Mohammed Ahmad is the first Arab Australian person to have their book shortlisted for the Miles Franklin Award, which is great. And the book follows, so I buddy read this with Jacqueline and Natalie again. We're sort of reading through a bunch of the shortlisted books, and the book follows a teenage boy called Barney Adam, and it's basically a coming of age story. So he's a Lebanese Australian Muslim, lives in Sydney in an area called Punchbowl, and goes to Punchbowl Boys High School, which is majority Lebanese Muslim male students. And it basically traces him. It's told from Barney Adams' perspective through early high school, late high school, and then the year after high school. So the book's told in 3 sections. And it really immerses you into the world of Lebanese Muslim youth. It was, you just dropped straight in there. The types of language they use, I don't just mean like bad, like swearing. I mean like the way they speak, integrating Arabic into their English and vice versa was really interesting. A sort of like sexism and like a sexist and homophobic culture. Also a lot of stuff about migrant culture, a lot of stuff about dealing with racism and the differences between, what they perceive to be the differences between their own culture and then white Australian culture, particularly Lebanese women and white Australian women, or what it means to be a Lebanese Muslim man versus a white Aussie man. It was really interesting. So there's a lot of violence, and I suppose the premise of the story is that this main character, Barney Adam, he sees himself as different to the other Lebanese boys. So he's not interested in fighting. He's not interested in hooking up with as many girls as possible. He really just wants to find the love of his life and get married. He tries dressing differently. He's really interested in literature and reading. He wants to be a writer, and essentially at the core of what he wants his identity to be is he wants to be more white. So he's trying really hard to be more white because in his view, whiteness is like the pinnacle of being civilized. But what I loved about this book was it was, despite all the stuff in it that was quite hard to read, like the sexism and homophobia and racism, there was a real warmth to it. And I think it was because Barney Adam is just so artless in the way he talks about, what he wants for himself. And, he wants so badly to be different from the community he's in, but he's also so tied to it. And it's this really complicated relationship to his own Muslim faith and to his own Muslim, like Lebanese and Muslim communities, where he loves elements of it, and he is, as devout a Muslim as he can be, even though the denomination of Muslim that he's a part of is probably like more liberal than some of the other ones, than the Sunnis and the Shiites. And then he also has this really complicated relationship to whiteness, where he thinks whiteness is this, excellent civilized way of being, whereas the book actually demonstrates that whiteness itself, like that is just this, internalized kind of racist ideal, and whiteness itself is hugely problematic, particularly in its cultural attitudes towards, in Australia, the attitude of the white population towards the Arabic population is often really problematic, as anyone who lives in Australia will know. And the book works through all sorts of things. So 9/11 happens while he's in high school, and it was really interesting reading about the sort of Lebanese boys' response to that, and how the white teachers were sort of trying to calm them down. They ask really pertinent questions of the teachers, like, why do we have to lower the Australian flag to mourn the white people that died in September 11 when Arabs are dying all the time as a result of the American presence? in their lands, and you've never once lowered the Lebanese flag or, you know, a flag from an Arabic nation. So there was a lot of really poignant moments like that. And then particularly in the final section, once Barney Adam has finished high school, he gets a job working for the local sort of multicultural arts organisation, and he's invited to be part of this creative development day or week where they're exploring violent, you know, sort of violence cultures amongst migrant youth, I think. And he gets really excited because he's like, yes, I'm going to be part of white culture, part of the arts. But as it turns out, this whole, I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to spoil it, but there are just so many gems exposing the way that even liberal, like left-wing liberal white Australians can be so ignorant about, not just about Islam, but about how to treat people from other cultures in a sensitive and appropriate way. And they basically, essentially what happens is that the white characters assume that their way of being is the only way of being, and they just show no interest in understanding Barney Adam's way of being. And it leads to a really heartbreaking but touching and affirming conclusion, which I won't go into, but it's really excellent. Just such a specific look at a particular culture in a particular place in Sydney. And also, you know, Barney Adam's working through his sexuality. Like, you never find out if he's gay, but there are sort of hints along the way to suggest that maybe he is and hasn't worked through that or even entertained that possibility because it's prohibited within his faith, and he is very devout. So, yeah, so many issues. It was so well written and so warm despite the really difficult things to read in it. Also, I really enjoyed the writing style, which was very immediate. I suppose that's because one of the aims of the book seemed to be to want to give you this immersive experience in this culture. And so, yeah, the language, it's first person present tense, but it's some of the descriptions, like when I was buddy reading it with Jacqueline and Natalie, I remember Jacqueline picked up one of the descriptions that the air was like charcoal chicken, and as someone who lived in Sydney, she's like, I know exactly I know exactly what he's referring to. And just some really interesting, unusual descriptions. I actually read this book as part of the Step Right Up-a-thon, and the prompt was a book with bite, and definitely this was it. It was so immediate and full on, but really warm and great. And I would be really, even though I've only read 2 books from the shortlist, if this one won, I would be really happy because, it was great, and I really recommend it.